back. Some commentary for you tonight. Actually, a video that I've been working on for a very long time, and I'm really interested. I know it's a long video, but I encourage you guys now to stick through it because I want to know what your opinions and impressions of it are. Over the past handful of years, I think I've had more than ever people question me about why we can't just build a football game, why we can't get the game that we want. Because truthfully, it sounds like a simple concept. We all want the same thing. We're all dissatisfied with every game on the marketplace in one facet or another. Now, some of you may realize that I'm the only commentator in this genre to have worked with every major development company, EA, 505, 2K, countless independent companies, and I've learned, no game is going to ever provide us the experience that we want. No game is ever going to be perfect. I mean, the only thing we can really hope for at the end of the day is some competitive balance and a game that's going to get it right 90% of the time. And I know a lot of you expect me to have answers, knowing what I know, learning what I've learned, done what I've done. And honestly, I would never dream of setting out to build a football game. But I at least wanted to sit down and plan everything out for if I had to go to the bank tomorrow and get a business loan and present them a plan, what would that plan look like and what would it be? So the first thing that I looked into was where this company is going to be based. We need a space, okay? There's a lot of things to take into consideration with that. And the first thing, the most important thing to me was that it was near a good gaming university because truthfully, that's where our talent is going to be coming from. Secondly, we need to create an attractive employee package. So we have to sustain living costs for the people that we hire. And this comes down to a really careful mix of average tuition costs versus average family income. And this meant that we got pushed away from really good schools like Ohio State because of their tuition costs, but we also got pushed away from really nice places like Central Florida because of the income needed to live there. I also wanted to make sure wherever we went that I was mindful of what was being developed around us. I don't want to be right beside another giant gaming company. So colleges like Full Sail and Becker, they really did provide great alternatives, but I settled with DigiPen. The reason for that is, and it does have its own problems, I thought some of those problems could ultimately be beneficial. They really do have a good mix of tuition to income. But they're also right next to Nintendo and Microsoft, which I know, and maybe you don't know, but there's such a big disparity between a programmer and a game programmer, and even a game programmer to a sports programmer, that I didn't think that they were going to impact us that much. And if anything, maybe would allow us the ability to create relationships rather than have to deal with competition over employees. So with that said, that was really one of the larger areas I wrestled with too is, do we really need a workspace? To me, working from home is something that a lot of people see as a viable option, but I didn't for this project. I think we need people together. I think we need communication. I think we need people sharing thoughts, exploring concepts, but most importantly, especially when you see the employment structure here, we need people striving toward the same goal. And I don't think they can do that isolated, separate from each other. I also know that for many of you that maybe are business minded, you're going to not like the fact or immediately be turned off that I decided to go with a triple net lease. The reason I'm doing that, though, is this is a short-term plan. This plan is actually laid out for only a single year. So I'm going to assume that in that year, we're not going to have a lot of repair or maintenance costs. And I actually was able to find a small but suitable yearly lease at a place called Overlake Park. It's $17.40 a square foot. They have a small office of just over 1,000 feet. It's perfect for creating an environment for our employees, but it's not bad to the point where we're paying for areas we won't use, like conference rooms, meeting rooms, but they have them that we can take advantage of. So I felt that was our best goal, our best bet to get into a business park like that. With that said, our limited budget, we need to make sure when the employees are there, they're keeping that goal in mind. I didn't want to waste money on a secretary. I thought the best thing that we could do is go and get an answering service. That way all our calls can be fielded through them. We can have a manager, as you'll see, that responds to those calls and allocates specifically who needs to respond and if they need to be responded to. I also thought we don't need packages sitting at our office. We don't need our employees stopping to go answer a door to sign for a package that they may or may not need. We certainly don't need important things like our operating systems, computers that need to be repaired or replaced sitting in front of our office door. So I thought there's no way we could do this without a prestige address or some type of external address that would allow us to monitor our packages safely and securely. So with saying that, we also have to account for a year's worth of high-speed internet, of phone, media storage, so that we can share things through each other and not have to worry about relying on free websites to upload files, which is unequivocally unprofessional. So, with a place to operate and at least some type of professional outward appearance, we have to get some tools. Okay, I figured we're going to need at least 4 PCs capable of developmental use. And that's probably going to be right around $3,000 per machine. I spent a good amount of time actually researching and thinking about how I would use animations. How would I get animations? And ultimately, the motion capture studios I looked at, while provide fantastic work and are a great, great resource, for our budget, were really just not reasonable. If you look at an 8-hour minimum, some of them up to $800 an hour, paying for the athlete services, paying for the cleanup of the animation once they're done, that all really factors into costs. And we're never going to get everything done in one day. You have to be prepared for the inevitable. There's a late build issue where we didn't record something. There's an animation that needs to be recaptured. We wouldn't have enough money or time to go recapture those images or get that extra coverage. So with that in mind, I started looking to investing into motion capture. And I found rather quickly through talking to other developers that the problem would be the space. We would need a large enough area to record a player running in stride, which eliminated a lot of the smaller, less expensive units. But there is an OptiTrack that would work. It's right around $11,000. It would aid us to build the game with Unity. So that's the operating platform I selected. And then obviously we'd have to look at getting some licenses for 3D Studio and at least one license for Photoshop. Would give us an ultra basic but functioning sandbox for our employees. And that's the last part, and really the scariest part of the venture would be getting the employees, because there's zero room for errors. There's zero room for the wrong person. Everyone brought on board would have to be hand-selected meticulously to meet our demands and know how to function in our programming. There's no room for learning on the job. So I thought the safest route to go would be to get a seasoned project manager who could oversee the vision, help develop a cohesive strategy with me or whoever to bring the pieces together as one. That person is probably going to cost us $90,000 a year. Underneath him are going to be 3 directors, each of which would be solely focused on different aspects of gameplay. We would have a design director. We would have a programming director. Underneath them would be our designers and programmers, 2 apiece. And then we would have an art director, which would have a designer and hopefully someone else that would design but also be proficient in sound, because we really don't have any sound done here. A lot of that would in turn be outsourced. And that's the largest expense of the project, is the people. That's where we lose ground to our competitors. That's where the risk of getting untested entry-level programmers provides a real issue, because you're paying these directors $70,000. I think all of the directors, all the artists, the programmers, could probably get around with an incentive-based pay where as long as they meet their goals and keep the game on track, they could get paid a little more, so maybe $55,000 to $60,000 a piece. Assuming we do all this and we start building something, there's also the inevitable things we have to plan for. Company travel is a big thing. Let's say that we get a league that takes interest in our product. We have to be able to get people there. Let's say there's a convention that we need to go to after being invited. Let's say there's a launching point for the game that we have to go to. I think extremely modest $10,000 reserved for that would allow for very light travel. Marketing such as polos and t-shirts for our employees, business cards for them to hand out when they're outside of the office, that's going to struggle to be kept in check by $2,000. So when you add all these figures up, you're looking at a turnkey 1-year video game process, which is highly unlikely. The prospect of creating a game, marketing a game, 1 month to basically make a concept, storyboard, present the game to the community for feedback, 8 months to design it, create it, launch it, have a playable alpha and beta, maybe only weeks to test it and resolve issues. There's no budget, as you know, for printing this game, so it's purely a digital release. There's zero room in our time frame to have any type of error with certification, no matter how we launch, whether it's through console or Steam. And at best, we're leaving ourselves 2 months to have employment for technical support, patching, updating, things along those lines. At that point, unless the sales had provided a revenue capable of sustaining our business, we would either need to continue to loan money out to maintain the business being afloat or close the doors. So when you ask yourself, why doesn't someone just do this? Here's a really good picture why. I mean, it's $690,000 just to start, to think about what we're going to do. It's about, in my opinion, in viewing it, as realistic as building a boat from toothpicks. I mean, on paper, you can build a boat from wood, and on paper, toothpicks are made from wood. They're inexpensive, they're readily available. But do you have the time, the money, the resources, the energy to do it? And even if you did do it, even if you made this massive toothpick boat, who in the world is going to buy it from you when they can just go to their local big box store and purchase an inflatable boat that doesn't really meet their needs either, but it's a fraction of the cost, and they're happy with it? So to me, look at the numbers on the screen and draw a conclusion here. Should you be happy with the developers that are currently making anything based on these figures? Should you do your best to support the developers that can put a product out? Can you understand why someone could look at a community that's negative about just about everything and see that that's a toxic environment? And if we did have someone that rode in on their white horse to save the day, can we really do everything here in a year for $700,000 with the prospect being of losing everything if we didn't? I just don't know that's a risk anyone would be willing to take, in truthfulness. So, as I said, a lot of time went into this. A lot of time. A lot of energy, a lot of research, a lot of talking to people, a lot of pretending to be involved with something I wasn't. But I want your guys' opinions on it. I want your impressions on it. How does this make you feel to see these numbers? Because I think for some of you, you may never thought about all these costs before. I appreciate you checking out a very long video. And as you know, I will be back in the week with more commentary.